Well, hey folks, welcome to Your Inspired Life. I'm your host, Amy Hager, and welcome to the show. If it's your first time here, I'll let you know that what we do at Your Inspired Life is focus on topics like improving your energy, improving your motivation, and improving your health to help you stay on track with your goals, especially your health goals, because we know that a solid foundation of health goals is helpful to achieving all the big goals that you want in your life. And this week, we've been focusing on a preparation stage to get you ready for an 8-week accountability program. That's right, next week starts off the 8-week Shape Up for Summer 8-week accountability program. And today we are focusing on one more day of preparation to get you ready to start off the week right. And that is to prepare your environment. We're going to engineer your environment for success. So before you get off and running with your program, there's one very important step that we need to address before you get going. There's an abundance of research that demonstrates how our immediate environment impacts our decisions and our behavior when it comes to food and habits. In particular, the simple act of just seeing the food increases our chances of eating that food, regardless of if we're hungry or not, or if we're already planning to eat something. Additionally, seeing food throughout the day actually decreases our willpower. That's due to decision fatigue, which I've mentioned before. On average, we make about 200 food decisions per day. And by the time we get to that 200th decision, you know that we've encountered decision fatigue. So for example, you witness a package of cookies on the table at about 9 o'clock in the morning, but you decide not to eat them then. Later in the day, after you've made hundreds of decisions, constantly saying no to the cookies, you finally succumb and you feel like it's a good idea to have one. Perhaps you've justified it as a reward for a stressful day. You felt pretty good about avoiding the cookies all day long. In fact, you've used so much willpower every time you saw them to say no. You're also getting a little bit hungry. Compare that to a scenario of a person who's got cookies, but they're in the cupboard. And that person's not seeing the cookies every time they go into the kitchen. They've had to exert much less willpower, and as a result, they have less decision fatigue because they're not in constant view. Now compare that scenario to someone who doesn't have cookies in the house at all. Practically zero willpower executed and nothing really contributing to decision fatigue at that point. So this is what we're getting at. So similar to the cookies, there's multiple things in your environment that speak to you with their accessibility, their availability, or their tempting nature. So you don't want to underestimate the power of engineering your environment for success when it comes to foods and other things that have an effect on your health decisions. It's definitely worth taking the time and a few extra precautions to start off your program week without the visual triggers. So what's the strategy? First of all, we want to decrease the availability of the tempting or trigger foods that are usually the high calorie foods or the foods that are likely to impede your success by, one, bringing less of these items into the house environment, or maybe it's your work environment, but do not depend on willpower to avoid these items. Willpower is a finite resource, and eventually by the end of the day, your willpower really decreases. One is to have less of these foods in your environment. Two is to make these tempting foods harder to access. So that could be putting them up out of reach, putting them in a pantry, perhaps putting them in a freezer, or even just making them hard to get to, like wrapping them up with a lot of tape. Or you could even just put them out of sight. Just never leaving them out where you're constantly seeing them and being exposed to them. Because every time you see it, you have to make a mental evaluation as to whether you're going to eat the food or not. So your goal is to increase the time and effort that it takes to access these foods. What this does is provide you with a stop and think moment. And that allows you to deliberately choose these foods out of choice rather than out of habit or weakness. To sum up part one of the strategy, that's decrease your access to the unhealthy stuff. Now, part two of the strategy is to increase your access and availability of your healthy options. You want to make all of your healthy options more available, more readily accessible, and easier to consume. So an example of this is to have your dinner meal plans planned out and prepared in advance. So that would be knowing that you're going to have chicken stir fry tonight. Second part of that is to make sure your chicken's pulled out of the freezer so it's defrosted. Third part of that is to make sure your vegetables are already chopped and prepared, so all you have to do is throw it into the pan. Once you save steps, it definitely increases your likelihood for following through with the plan. Number 2 is to have plenty of fresh fruit and vegetables available and ready for snacking or consuming. So having them washed, having them peeled, having them chopped, and then having them put away in a container that's very easily visible. So maybe it's a clear glass container or a clear Tupperware container that's in the fridge so you can see that they're already there and available and not hidden away in plastic or paper bags in the drawer. And then number 3 is to make those healthy options even more appealing and interesting of a choice to select with a variety of combinations and flavors and seasonings. So instead of having the same plain old boring chopped carrots, perhaps you mix it up with sliced cucumber or green beans or mushrooms or cauliflower. And maybe instead of always having ranch dressing, you have it mixed up with buffalo ranch or barbecue or Parmesan or some other kind of option that makes it more appealing. The other thing you can do is applying this technique above and beyond the kitchen and the food, thinking about healthy options as far as perhaps your fitness choices go. How can you make your fitness routines more accessible and appealing? Can you have a special dedicated area for your workouts that's inviting and pleasing to be in? Versus a crate that houses all of your workout equipment kind of in a pile. That seems like you have to kind of dig through it to get to it. So have fun with it. Get creative with your environmental engineering, but know that it's worth the effort because our environment has a tremendous impact on our decisions and our behavior. And we can save our willpower for the times when we really need it. So have a great weekend, folks, and I'll pop in with a few bits of motivation, but I'll see you on Monday live as we kick off our 8 weeks Shape Up for Summer accountability program. Take care.